This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. Always consult qualified professionals regarding your specific situation. All opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests. The hosts and producers assume no liability for actions taken based on the content of this podcast.
Welcome to Health Yeah, the show where we make health feel a little less intimidating and a whole lot more fun. I'm Cheyenne, your co-host and resident comedic relief, here to keep things light. Hosting and leading the charge is Dr. David Pei, our medical mastermind, who asks all the right questions. Beside us is Eva, co-host and producer, making sure the magic happens behind the scenes and on the mic. And of course, we've got John, the brains behind the operation and our co-producer, keeping us on track. Together, we're here to bring you real conversation, practical tips, and maybe a few laughs along the way. So buckle up, because when it comes to your health, the answer should always be health yeah. All right, Dr. David Pei, what is on your mind today?
What is on my mind today? Well, what I'm thinking about today is something that impacts most of us, where we spend most of our waking hours. What I'm thinking about today is about our jobs, our professional lives. That's what I'm thinking about today.
So, David, have you ever looked at your job and thought, this is not what I signed up for? With burnout, poor work relationship, and being pushed into doing things you don't want to do.
Yeah, I think that that's something that is very relatable, that I have myself been feeling in that type of role. And I think that people might ask in a health podcast, why are we talking about this? So, well, as we examine the different dimensions of health, physical, emotional, intellectual, financial, and how they connect to living a meaningful life, our jobs are a big part of that. If you think about work, ideally gives us a positive sense of mission and purpose, of identity, community, and financial security. So those are things it's supposed to provide for us. But as we'll find out in this episode, it can also be a source of, like you mentioned, John, or be a big driver of stress, burnout, disappointment, even leading up to poor sleep and declining health if we're not careful about how to manage our jobs and how to approach it.
So my brother Wade had so much fun in our previous episode that he was dying to come back. Here he is to discuss with us how work, family, and identity all collide and how to manage that.
Great. Thank you, Wade, for coming on our show today. So I'm going to start by asking you to give us some background about your work, what led you to make that career choice in your life, the evolution and progression of that career choice, where you are today, and what you have planned for the future.
Thanks for having me. What led me to my career choice, I found that I like to eat almost every day, and I needed a way to provide that. So
Same here.
Food on the table.
Yeah. I've always worked in a blue collar career, and I found early on that I like to work with my hands. Much outside of that was really never up for debate. I knocked around a few things when I was younger, got married without a plan. And when my oldest daughter came along, I decided that I really needed a career focus, I had jobs, but I didn't have a career minded. So I got into welding. It seemed I liked to play with fire. I was a little bit of a pyromaniac as a kid, so it seemed like a natural progression. I worked during the day and went to welding school at night. Then I worked into several career moves after that. I worked in fab shops, which is basically where you build large things out of steel, for mostly industrial purposes. Then I morphed into the cement industry, and that's where I still am today, 26 years later. So it's always been, until recently, it's always been hands-on, blue-collar, welding, mechanical repairs, that type of thing. Stint as a mechanic, heavy equipment mechanic, and today I am actually managing all the heavy equipment for the cement producer. So we have some large mining equipment, and I manage all the entire fleet and the support vehicles that go along with that.
Cool. I think that I have a deep level of admiration for those people who work with their hands, especially in building and construction. And I think sometimes maybe people don't appreciate or take for granted those of us, those are like people like you who help actually build things and create great projects to help make forward progress in our lives. So thank you for doing that. So now that we're trying to integrate your professional life and your job, And given your background, tell us about where you are today in terms of juggling family and work ambition and potentially burnout. Where are you with those elements in your professional life today?
I'm teetering on the burnout. I have a large portion that I'm responsible for, and it becomes daunting at times. What I struggle with most is finding the point, because I don't have a lot of oversight. I'm responsible for a lot of things, but I don't have a direct oversight. I don't have a boss that's telling me you need to be here these hours and do these things. It's These are the things I answer for, and those have to be accomplished because it's coming back to me. So finding that stopping point on a daily basis and on a general basis is difficult. There's never a point when I'm actually done for the day. It's not a clock out at 5 o'clock. It's, have I done enough today to go home?
Yeah.
Has everything been covered today? So finding that stopping point and prioritizing family life has been a struggle, because up until about 4 to 5 years ago, I did have that time clock where, hey, I'm at this time every day, I go home. So there was a more rigid frame, and I'm driven to do a good job at whatever I do. So I drive myself harder, I think, than is even asked of me. But at the time, and I've entered the phase where we have grown children and entering the grandparent phase. So making sure that I prioritize that, hey, I've done enough for the job today. It's time to go home and enjoy my family and my grandchildren and my wife. So that's where I struggle at this time. It's a very demanding job, and I have to find that breaking point that I can prioritize what's more important, because like any job, we all have self-importance, but we can easily be replaced, but you can't be replaced in your family.
Oh, that's profound insight, Wade. You're absolutely right about that. And it sounds like, I think a lot of people struggle with this, and you don't even work from home. You're actually on the job site, but it sounds like you had more or better boundaries earlier in your career than you do now. And it's kind of you had to decide between Wade the worker versus Wade the family man, and where that right line is. And it sounds like a lot of that's left up to you. I think even being an on-site, not working from home, a lot of people find that when my friends who do work from home share with me, they also struggle, because when you work from home, you're still sitting in the same place where home is. Where does the work begin and the work end when you're physically at the same place for both?
Yes. My wife does that. And so I'm very familiar with that as well.
So how does she distinguish between working and starting her day, actually like being done with work?
It's a blur because hers doesn't really end. She has a time frame when there are calls and things that she has to be physically present for. She has to be on camera, on calls, running the call, managing the team. And then as that ends, there are still things, the emails never end. And much like my job, you can question, do you have to deal with that now? Well, if she doesn't deal with it, she has to deal with it in the morning. It's just going to be stacked up. So it's best to knock it out. So hers continues, according to the workload at that given day, continues through the night sometimes. And she has the same work-life balance that most of us deal with. That hers is blurred much more than mine is. She has to find those stopping points as well. But I think it's even more difficult for her because she's here at home and constantly in communication. And all of her job is electronic communications. You're either online, on email, on camera. And so it's all right there. I can at least leave the equipment at work. I may have to call and manage a contractor or something like that, but it's not like hers.
When you leave work, you're basically done.
Not necessarily. I can be done, but there's usually always something else that's not quite wrapped up. I may have a contractor working, or I may get called by an operator. Hey, this machine is doing this. Do I need to stop it? And do we need to look at that? Or so a lot of mine is manageable by phone, but I'm sort of on call 24 hours a day, but it's not constant.
I see.
What about you, David? How did you find your way to balance your work and home life?
I still struggle with that. And that is not just patient care, but also planning deployment and the schedule for the people within our department, and trying to ensure that patient care needs are met, doing administrative roles. It's hard. I'm sure this is true for Wade. my work life, my professional life is a big part of my self-identity in terms of what's my purpose. So, but obviously my purpose is also to be husband to my spouse and father to my kids and friend to my friends and son to my parents and whatnot and whatever. So I find it difficult to juggle. And I find that sometimes there's a moving line between, and I'm sure Wade can identify, you all can identify with this, accessibility to your work to make sure that you try to make things work well. And then boundaries to make sure that you still commit yourself to the things outside of work that is important to your life. So I wish I had a more definitive answer. It kind of depends on the needs. Like if there's something urgent within the workplace, and that, make sure it's important as well, because there's a difference between urgent and important. But there's something that's urgent and important, then I'll address that. But I also have to make time. As I'm getting older, I realize that our life equity or life bandwidth, put it that way, is a finite resource, and we really need to think about what our mission and vision is for our lives, and then see to dedicate our life, to give the proper amount of life equity to whatever we think is important that's going to bring us fulfillment. I think that's a very big important part of actually being a healthy person. I hope that answers your question, John.
I just think it's difficult for everybody because it's hard to balance. Like you feel like you're being pulled in some direction all the time. And sometimes family has to take priority and sometimes work has to take priority.
Wade, going back to you, what do you have any sort of yourself guidelines or rules to follow about? Because it seems like it's open-ended for you. Did you do enough work today? How do you make that determination? Since you don't have the boundaries you had earlier about it's cut off at this time, like at 5 or whatever time it's cut off, versus did I do everything I'm supposed to do today? And what happens if it cuts into excessive amounts over, because I would think that where you're at right now is a harder place to be than it was previously when you had to define clock cutoffs.
It is 100% much more difficult. The issues lie in during the regular workday, the scheduled workday, so to speak. There are constant crises, some worse than others, but it's always a new set of criteria, a machine broken down, or an operator has an issue, or logistics, getting equipment moved in, out, relocated, delivered, picked up, all those things. And that's a constant influx. It's hard to get detailed work done. So what happens usually is I accomplish the workday, and then I close my office doors, and then I start on the work that requires more detail, that I have to be at my computer, at my desk, making sure that things are logged correctly, making sure that, things are scheduled correctly, reports and contracts and bids and all those things. So it's hard to get those things accomplished, and those never end. And I have a series of vendors who I'm responsible to make sure they get paid correctly. So their careers and their relation to me is affected, because if they're not getting paid, they're not there when I need them. Finding that stopping point that I prioritize safety, the maintenance of the equipment, and then making sure everyone gets paid and making sure everything's moving forward. So I'm planning up to 5 years in advance. And that stopping point is difficult to find. It comes down to a daily decision of, I actually draw a physical line on my legal pad, which is what I refer to as my brain, because that's where I remember everything, is my legal pad. And I draw a physical line and said, that's where I have to stop today. And everything else below that line can wait till tomorrow or another time. So these people have to be paid today. This has to be scheduled. This has to be done. Then I'm done for today.
Wow.
So that's the way I do it. It's a daily decision.
It's multifaceted. I'm talking about payroll, contracts, and making sure all the safety and the other elements. I can somewhat relate to that, because in my role, it's more than just taking care of patients. There's other sort of that type of logistical or administrative or scheduling type of things involved. You mentioned earlier, because you're involved in several different areas of your company's day-to-day operations that are essential. You did say that maybe sometimes something about feeling like you're replaceable. Sounds like you'd be very difficult to replace, performing all those different roles.
There's a component where you feel very important and very gives you some sense of identity, that you are the man, in air quotes, that you're the go-to guy that can solve any problem. That gives you a certain amount of identity, but it's also very stressful. The ability to be replaced is, in my particular instance, there are very few people who know all of the things that I cover, and it's kind of morphed in that way. Unfortunately, the person who had the position previous to me got very sick, and I took over his jobs temporarily, his responsibilities, until he returned. Well, he wasn't ever able to return, so I inherited everything and had to build it from the ground up because I never had any training. He wasn't there to train me. So nobody knew what he did, and now nobody knows what I do. And I try to convey that to the people who are responsible, who will take over, that, I'm not getting any younger, and you never know what's going to happen. I feel like everyone is replaceable. Will it be difficult? Yes. Will it ever be everything that I cover? Maybe there are two people that cover the things that I cover now. I don't know how that'll play out. Maybe they morph it into we have a new management structure that maybe sees things a little differently. I'm still kind of feeling them out. So maybe it morphs into a different type role than it currently is. So on one hand, I feel very, empowered. I don't know if that's the correct term, but, it's a huge responsibility, but that gives you a certain amount of pride as well. On the other hand, it's a double-edged sword. I can't ever quite find the end of it.
I can hear what you're saying. Obviously, I can identify with this too. It sounds like, careers can be pressure cookers. You got those long hours, poorly defined boundaries between where your work ends and where it begins. It could be a lot. And sometimes this pressure cooker grind can blur into our identities. Do you ever wrestle with your career choices and where you are today, or wish that you went on a different path, or do you feel like you are where you're supposed to be?
No, I've never really felt like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I feel like, like many of us, I found a path that provided for my family, and I've tried to make the best of that. I do, on some levels, mostly the personal level, the choice to step into management added much more stress and lowered my quality of life outside of my job. I felt like it was a challenge at the time and something I wanted to pursue. So on that level, I feel like that I could have made some different choices that would have been better for my personal life. I've always had an entrepreneurial type spirit that I've always felt like I wanted to go down that road, but was hesitant because of my responsibilities. But in recent years, I have pursued some of those things, and that's kind of what's working me toward my ability to retire now. I've invested in some properties and things that are helping in that area. At this time, with the structure of my company, I could retire now. It wouldn't be really lucrative. It's an early retirement, so there are reduced pension and things like that. But I hope to morph into more of managing my properties and doing the things I've always wanted to do, kind of letting this career fade away, because it's just been a job that provided. It's never been anything that I'm really passionate about. Oftentimes, many of us within the company, we don't feel appreciated for the things we do. It's a European-owned company, and there is a hierarchical structure that is not conducive to the American spirit. We'll put it that way. It's more of a us versus them mentality, and that's not. You never feel fulfilled in that environment.
That's unfortunate. I hear from a lot of my friends, and I just hear from personal experiences about the frustration when the people that are the owners or the top level management are so far and separated from those on the ground doing the work, and feeling like you're unknown or unappreciated can be very frustrating. This is kind of the way I see the progression of it. It's like you're a fellow that's big, strong fella, likes working with your hands, good at what you do, blue collar, on the job, working, took over a managerial role, which means you're doing some of that, but you're also now managing people and trying to bring out the best in them. And then seeing the already at the, looks like the doorstep of really hoping to realize your entrepreneurial spirit, which sounds like your deepest passion, that you think you'll get more professional gratification out of that. What was it like to go from on the ground, you do the job, you work on it, to managing people who do that job? What are the things that you learned along the way from being, again, on the ground worker to a manager of people? What are the challenges? What are the successes, the drawbacks, and the good things?
As very simplest terms, actually putting down the tools, and I think in retrospect, that gave me a creative outlet that I was good at. I was good at building things. I was good at repairing things. And it gave me a creative outlet that doesn't get fulfilled anymore. That's the very simplest terms. The more complicated are the management. Now, it's not like I changed companies. I went from working side by side with these guys in an equal role to now being their manager. And that was a very tough and continues to be a very tough transition because I was one of them. And I was one of the leaders within them, within that pack. It's a union organization. So I was one of the leaders in that organization. And now I have to enforce the management policies on the same guys that I used to negotiate for and stand up for. And so that's been a tough role. And to step out of that friend role into a boss role, that's been an adjustment. And I'm only sneaking up on 5 years into this journey. The most effective solution that I've found is I try to manage in a way that the managers I responded to manage. And that's treating my guys with respect and allowing them to be the craftsmen that they are and the tradesmen that they are, and not micromanaging, giving them their responsibilities and what I expect of them, but not putting my finger on and over managing them. So those are the type of managers that I responded to as a tradesman. So then I emulate that, and I've gotten good response. Most of the guys will work for me better than they'll work for maybe other managers.
That's awesome to hear, Wade. My experience mirrors yours in my space. I was asked to assume a managerial role because nobody else wanted the role. And this is my 7th year in that role. And just like you, I try to ask myself, what were the best leaders that I had, managers that try to bring out the best in me? You being a tradesman or me being a clinical person, it's been a steep learning curve for me. And I love the way you approach this because you're trying to let your fellows be the very best versions of themselves as tradesmen. And you're in the trenches with them doing with some of the jobs they did side by side. And you use that insight to hopefully make them better. It's funny, like I'm going to share with the group that Cheyenne came on board as a leader for his respective silo of people along with me, and he helps me out tremendously. So Cheyenne, what has it been like for you on this managerial journey from being someone in the trenches to being now in the trenches and also a manager just like Wade and me?
It's funny. It's similar to you, David. I feel like I got the role because nobody else wanted it. So, and now I'm on year 3 of doing this. The best part is I get to work with David. So it's really nice to have somebody that you report to that hears you out, helps you achieve the goals that you want to have. On the other hand, it can wear you down just you feel responsible for a larger group of people at work on top of your family at home. And that responsibility can weigh on you over time if you can't provide them with the things that they're asking for. So it has its pros and cons, I would say.
Well, I think I heard Wade, you, and Cheyenne. There's some overriding principles in that you treat your people under you with respect and you actually care about them. I don't see that in a lot of places anymore. It just goes back to our basic core values, and I think that can be anything from our work life to our home life to our friends. But I think the company or whatever is a better place when people are treated like that.
I definitely agree. And my leadership style, I tried to emulate David. And
Yeah.
that's what I've watched, and I've seen how effective it is. And it's sort of baffling to me to see how like larger corporations are moving away from that, when I see you get so much more yield when you treat employees as if they're family, as if you would treat the way that you would treat your family, and treat them with respect. And David has taught me that, and he's, taken our group, grown it, multiple times over with the way that he's run the group, and it's shown to be very effective. So it is baffling to me that more companies are moving away from that.
Yeah, it sounds like Wade's company, they're European owned. So he deals with that. And I'm sure that's part of the frustration you have. What are your greatest frustrations in your current setup, Wade, with dealing with that type of dynamic and setup?
Probably currently the greatest frustration is a lack of defined direction or what my role is, because much like you and Sean mentioned, I took on a lot of things that nobody else wanted. nobody was doing them. A new management team rolled in and they start questioning what I was doing. And do you have the authority to do that? And do you have, why are you making these decisions? Well, because nobody else was making them. And somebody had to keep this place running. And if this key piece of equipment's not running, we're out of business. So I was making these decisions that may or may not have been above my pay grade. So then now what's my defined role? So I'm involved in new equipment purchases and all these things. And so now there's no defined role, but yet you want to control what we purchase, but you don't understand what it is or what it does or how it works or how the service works. So where do I fit into this? And there's no clearly defined role. I just grab a place and try to hang on and try to be as beneficial as I can and make sure things keep moving. And as you mentioned earlier, the replaceability there, when you don't even understand what to do, how are you going to support me? And in their defense, they came from a place in France where they weren't involved in this aspect of it. It was all a separate entity. That it was just a budgetable expense. We wrote one check per month that covered all of these things. And now they're involved on the daily. And now they want to question, why did you spend this money? And why did you issue this PO? Why did you do this? So that's the most frustrating thing currently is the finding out where I fit and what do you expect of me? Because you own the company. I'll do whatever. I'll fill in whatever role you want me to, but you haven't clearly defined where you want me to be.
Yeah, that's a frustration I hear way too often from other people in all the different fields that my friends and family that they work in. I think I'm going to ask Wade this question, but I also want, if you don't mind, group, if everyone can answer this question, but I'll start with Wade first. What does a good day at work feel like for us now?
Very interesting. I use this term at work a lot, and this may not be what you're looking for, but I say a manageable level of chaos, because there's always chaos. There's never a day when it's not chaos. It's whatever has been destroyed today. So a manageable level of chaos where I can walk through calmly and make good decisions and good plans going forward without I don't think urgency, without an emergency type status. I expect the chaos, but I want it to be a manageable level. And that's a good day for me, to be honest. That may not be what you're looking for, but that's where it is in my world right now.
Well, it makes sense because you don't want to expend extra life equity or bandwidth, because then there's less of you when your work day ends.
And that's exactly the case. And I struggle in that role in that department, because I'm an introvert by nature, and it takes a lot of energy for me to manage people, manage contractors constantly on the radio or on phone calls. And that there is an energy expenditure, and that it was not comparable to the physical expenditure I used to have. And at the end of the day, I'm wiped. And so there's a point where I'm not being effective anymore because my brain and my spirit is wiped out. And then I feel like I'm not as effective at home because I need the downtime. I need some quiet, and I need a little bit of peace to put my spirit and my brain back to where it needs to be. And I feel like I'm depriving my family of some of my energy because it takes so much to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Being present for your family, that's just huge. I mean, so much of overall health isn't just what we do at work, but what we do when we're, not for you because you're never off the clock, but when you're at least allowing yourself not to be on the clock. Yeah. For those of people who are important to you. That's absolutely critical. How about the rest of you guys? What's a good day at work feel like for you guys?
I forget what it feels like. I'm kidding. I mean, with our jobs,
He works with me.
That's a good day. When I get to work with Eva, that's a great day. Honestly, it's feeling like I was able to provide safe care for my patients. They came in, they left comfortable, happy, and whatever procedure they were having was completed in a safe manner. That is what makes my job fulfilling and makes me feel like I'm sort of making a difference. I was able to make this patient feel at ease and feel like they were able to get their procedure done and felt comfortable with me as a provider for them. So that's a good day for me. How about you, John?
Yeah, that I agree. Just knowing that everybody, including the entire nursing staff, anesthesia, and the the surgeons or the GI docs, everybody does their job, do it well. For the patients, of course. Also for the team too. If you take care of the patients, you got to take care of each other within the team. So if someone who's slacking off, some other people will have to pick up the responsibility. Drives me crazy.
I wouldn't have known that, John.
I don't tell you, but inside it's
There are signs.
Never picked up on it.
Yeah, so the subtle low tone growl.
I go to the bathroom and I scream and
Oh, so that's the person that we've been hearing.
Punches the locker.
Right.
How about you, Eva?
For me, I actually love my actual job. I like taking care of a patient, and more along the lines of Cheyenne. When a patient comes in, and every patient is nervous before surgery, if I can make that patient feel comfortable, feel safe in my care, and then while they're asleep, I kind of view my role as a protector, and they go home and they've had a good experience and they're doing well, I feel like that's a good day. And John's right. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of moving parts. I'm kind of like, Wade, at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. That's a lot of interaction because I'm an introvert too. But it's a good day if I can take good care of my patients and good care of my coworkers.
I love your answers. Me being the long-winded person, I'm going to give you my answer too. But think about what it means to be healthy. And to do that, we need to look at our ancestral past. When I look at a work group, I see it as a tribe coming together to produce a common desired outcome or goal. And I think to your point, Eva, what we do is we put patients at their most vulnerable position in which they're scared, rely upon us to basically protect their lives and keep them in a safe, good place to get through whatever procedure they need to get through. I think that collaborative effort with not just people within our team, but also across the other major players, surgeons, nurses, GI doctors, what have you, and to have a collaborative effort where we produce a good outcome. And I often call that the modern day woolly mammoth. And what does that mean? It's like, well, in the old days, tribes had to come together to work together, and they had to kill a woolly mammoth so that we could eat. That requires people from different aspects of that tribe to come together to produce a good outcome. Well, when we do good patient care, have good outcomes, and everybody feels they did their part to contribute, and there's consensus in that, and everyone goes home feeling like they did a good day's work, and they have enough life equity or bandwidth left over to go home and spend time with their families. I think that to me is a good day. And luckily, I'm fortunate on most days rather than not, we get that. There's some days that are challenges. To your point, Wade, there are days it's like, I got nothing left in the tank. I hit the door.
A lot of days.
Yes, sir. I hit the door and I'm just basically collapsing on the couch and goes, I got nothing left in the tank, honey. I'm sorry.
And it's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing.
Yes, and that's the way. In that being in a managerial role, Wade or Cheyenne, you know that you're not really even on weekends. Cheyenne knows this, and you do too, Wade. You're just still thinking about stuff. You're thinking about that contract. You're thinking about payroll. You're thinking about that PO that maybe may or may not go through or may not meet the deadline. All those kind of things, they're in the back of our minds. And I think that's why it's our work, our jobs have a major impact on our health, all four healths. You're going to hear this theme as well. Obviously, there's the physical health part, and that is what most people think about in terms of health. But there's also an emotional health part, which I think reflects the status of our relationships with other human beings are important to us. There's an intellectual health part where you want to be informed and knowledgeable. And there's a spiritual health part about metaphysical, higher transcendent realities that drive us and let us know that human beings are more than just a collection of carbon-based molecules. So I think that maybe to make it more simple, bring it back to the ground, work is what you do, not who you are, but is an important part of our purpose being worked out in reality and in creation. And then it evolves over time. And we're going to talk about a health podcast, but the healthier we are, the better we can work in our professional lives. And I think that maybe we could have more of us left over when we get home. My experience, staying well means being active, eating well, maintaining relationships, and avoiding isolation and loneliness. And a lot of my personal interactions, I mean, look at my friends. Eva, Cheyenne, and John are my friends. They're also my work colleagues. So you see, for me, that's where work takes a huge amount of weight and importance to my overall life, my happiness, and my joys. And speaking of that happiness, for those of you who are aware, I'm a big fan of someone named Arthur Brooks, who is a happiness expert. He has a professorship at Harvard, and he talks about what's important for us to live meaningful lives in which we have a greater chance of realizing happiness and joy. And he mentions it as having some sort of faith or higher level transcendent metaphysical, whatever you call it, whether it's a religion or some other outlet about things that are more than just about this material world, but something that drives us, that gives us insight in higher realities, family, friends. And the fourth component that he talks about is meaningful work. So we need to have work that makes us feel like we're making forward progress and we bring value to the world with whatever abilities, talents, and insights that we've been gifted with. When I plug into that, I find myself really working with more energy, clarity, and purpose. And it gives me endurance to deal with the frustrations which we all deal with. I mean, working for Euro Conglomero, who doesn't even know what you do, right? But on the ground, your fellows that work underneath you know that you're one of them. And there's this priceless satisfaction that I imagine you'd probably get watching them. And you know them. You're one of them. You're not some European suit coming over telling them, why'd you order this and why'd you order that? You're one of them. And for me, I think that when I'm with my people, I'm one of them. I've been there in the rooms, and I make it a point for me to do what they do, at least occasionally, so I know what I'm asking, versus a suit that doesn't even know what they're asking out of you. So I think that wherever we are in our career, we should all take stock, breathe, and remember that our worth just isn't our job title, but we have the immense potential to make positive impact on those around us. Whether you're just someone on the line, on the lowest level, or if you're managerial or even higher, that downstream of us or upstream of us, we can make enormous impact. It's the human-to-human interaction going back to our ancestral history.
Well, I think that one thing that I realize, and we've seen it in our own group, is no matter what you're doing, the attitude of the people makes or break it, the team. You know, like positive attitudes is catching, and so is negative. And I think that can make a difference in your satisfaction of whatever your job is. But I do think that we can only control us. We control how we interact. I think it can be contagious. I read this study about water that I thought was absolutely mind-blowing. And it was a Japanese researcher who studied water. They froze the water and looked at the crystals, and the water crystals that was exposed to negative emotions and negative language and all that stuff, when they looked at them under the microscope, were this distorted, horrible looking things. And the water crystals that was exposed to positive words and music looked like these beautiful snowflakes. So I think there is something going back to your, like you say, the metaphysical world, that we can make a difference in the world around us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's some sort of synergistic effect when like-minded people come together for a good cause, to make forward progress. And when that happens, just the potential is unbelievable. And it doesn't happen as often as I wish it would happen. But when it does, and I've been able to witness some of that, even in my own personal and professional life, it's an amazing thing to behold.
David, would you say, or any of you, if you had to say a couple of things that balance work-life balance or bring something better to whatever job,
I'll start by saying, for me, I try to teach this to my children about their career choices, what they want to do. And I said, before you run off, and of course, these are all important things, whether it's income or other aspects of their job, before you even ask yourself that, and we'll talk about this, what you think your life's purpose and mission is. Ask yourself that. Well, and it has to be really honest. What do you think? Why are you here? And then once you get the answer to that, what's your purpose? What does the ideal version of that look like in future state, whether it's 1 month, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, right? So I think a lot of people call that vision or future state. Ask yourself those things first, and then dig deep into what are your true. And this is why I think the faith or the transcendent part creates something. What are your values and principles that are going to inform that and guide that, right? Once you get solid answers to that and go, where, with your talents and abilities, where are you going to go with that, and to work together with like-minded people to produce this goodness and the synergy that we've been talking about to give you professional joy. I think that's one of the most important things. I've been trying to put that into my kids' heads and hearts so they'll make good decisions and find professional job satisfaction.
Yeah, I wish somebody had told me that young.
We probably wouldn't have listened.
No,
Yeah,
I
me too.
definitely wouldn't have.
I think we spend a great deal of our careers figuring things out, and by the time you start to get a grasp on it, it's near the end of your career. You're just trying to get from point A to point B most of your life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wade, thank you so much for coming and sharing your life experiences with us. They've really blessed me and informed. We are dynamic creatures, and we're not saying we're constantly transforming. And my interactions with Mr. Wade Sylvie have made me a better human being.
I would agree.
Thank you. I feel the same.
Alrighty, guys, you've been listening to Health Yeah with Cheyenne, David, Eva, John, and of course our special guest Wade, bringing you the medicine, the mayhem, and the laughs every week. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and remember, health isn't about perfection, it's about progress. So go out there and live your best Health Yeah life.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. Always consult qualified professionals regarding your specific situation. All opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests. The hosts and producers assume no liability for actions taken based on the content of this podcast.